Talk to Banner?
No Banner. Only Hulk.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. I had a chance to see Spider-Man Brand New Day. This will be my non-spoilery review video. This is Tom Holland's 4th solo Spider-Man movie and his 7th Marvel movie so far. It represents a big creative reset for the character, as well as for Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, for all the Hulk fans out there wanting to see them do the Hulk right. As they try to launch a new trilogy of Spider-Man movies, like this is the future of Spider-Man, so we will discuss whether or not they were successful in doing that, because there's a lot that was riding on this movie that it had to do. Relaunch Spider-Man, relaunch the Hulk, and without getting into big spoilers, launch a big new MCU character in Sadie Sink. That being said, it was amazing at how they were able to absolutely nail the core of what Spider-Man is in a movie. It really does make you hopeful about the future potential of what they can do with the Spider-Man character. And literally, the worst thing about this movie is that right after I got out of the movie, I found out that my YouTube channel and my Google account had been hacked. So YouTube and Google, please help me get my account back so I can post more Spider-Man videos. If you see me posting these to my random social accounts outside of my YouTube account for the next couple of days, that's why. Seriously, YouTube, Google, looking at you. Help me get my account back. I will do more spoilery post-credit scene videos, full breakdown Easter egg videos, and more specific videos about details in the movie later this week, because there is a lot to unpack, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Hopefully I'll have my account back and everything will be good, so I'll be posting regular YouTube videos again on a normal basis. But I really do feel like the movie rewards longtime Spider-Man fans who have been wanting to see Marvel do a more legit Spider-Man solo movie as opposed to the Avengers crossover movies like Iron Man light movies that Spider-Man has been in the previous trilogy. And Brand New Day is probably the most comic booky, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man movie that they have ever done in the MCU, despite there being a lot of wider MCU stuff going on in the movie itself. The movie features an isolated Peter Parker fighting crime a full 4 years after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. His increasing isolation triggers an uncontrollable physical evolution in his powers as he faces a hidden invisible threat in grounded New York enemies, and the threat being that he's been pushing the Peter Parker side of his life away, and the more he does that, the more spider-like he becomes, metaphorically and literally, in a very ironic kind of way. So a really big part of the movie is in Peter rediscovering his friends and learning to connect with other people in a way that he hasn't over the past 4 years. One of the good benchmarks for Spider-Man films is how sad he is and how depressing his life is, like how crappy his apartment is, and going by that scale, he's doing pretty good in this movie.
Give me rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
Like the worse things are going for Spider-Man, the happier we are as Spider-Man fans. Tom Holland said it took them 5 years to make another Spider-Man movie because they wanted to give time for the characters and the actors to metaphorically and literally grow up, and it does feel like a much more grown-up Spider-Man movie than Marvel has done during the MCU era. Real ones remember Tobey Maguire went there a long time ago. You can make the joke that Kevin Feige and Marvel took the first 20 minutes of Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man movie and just turned that into 3 movies. So in Brand New Day, he's more on par with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man during Spider-Man 2. Although I will say, the battle of crappy apartments, Tobey Maguire definitely has a crappier, sadder apartment, and Mr. Dickovitz still trying to get him to pay that rent. Throughout the movie, Peter learns the hard way using some really big comic book deep cuts from the Spider-Man stories. There are over 50 comic book covers in their inspiration wall when they were making the movie. Not all of them wound up being in the movie, but a lot of the comic book cover moments did make it into the movie. One of my favorite parts of the movie was the way they made it in such a practical way. Like, it's very, very visibly different from the John Watts era of Spider-Man movies, just in terms of the way they make the Spider-Man movies. In the movie, Peter makes his own Spider-Man suit and is inspired by his time with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions in making his new suit. Without getting into spoilers, he does reference them in the movie too. But also in real life, they actually used Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's real physical Spider-Man suits they used for filming to build Tom Holland's new suit in a more practical way that it was easier for him to film in walking around on set in. Destin Daniel Cretton, the director, gets most of the credit for this, shooting most of the movie practical instead of the CG slop that a lot of the big Marvel movies succumbed to in the past few years. So if you've been watching the trailers wondering why it looks so much better visually, just like the way he's moving through the movie and the way everything else looks, that's why, because they filmed most of this movie practically. They literally filmed inside the mask. This is also for plot reasons too, so you can actually see some of his spider transformations later in the movie under the mask, but he also feels much more real and kinetic than he did during the previous John Watts Spider-Man movies. So thank you very much to Destin Daniel Cretton. Please come back and do a couple more Spider-Man movies with Marvel. The web sling looks so much better. They really go at it this time, and Jackie Chan's stunt team worked on the movie, not just for the hand fight scenes. Destin Daniel Cretton also did the Shang-Chi movie recently, so he has experience doing martial arts, physically based combat movies. But don't be mistaken, they did use a lot of CG in the movie, like there were a lot of visual effects, especially for big fight scenes like the Hulk. All of them look way better than Hulk's fight scenes in a long time though, maybe ever, so whatever they did on this movie, they just took the time to make it look that much better. For all you fans wanting to see a more savage Hulk in the MCU, they definitely take him back to Savage Hulk.
And Hulk. Smash.
And not only does Hulk look a lot better in this movie, he also sounds a lot better too. In previous Marvel movies, they would throw a ton of effects and processing on his voice, so it'd sound kind of auto-tuned. Now they let Mark Ruffalo do most of the voice, and it sounds way more like him, like there's way less processing on it. And he is way bigger than Savage Hulk was in the past. Not just Professor Hulk. Professor Hulk was also smaller than Savage Hulk, but he's bigger than previous Savage Hulk. So Hulk fans eating good right now. And Destin Daniel Cretton also said that Mark Ruffalo separately had been pitching him on doing more Hulk movies. Maybe they can work out their problems with Universal so we can see some of those movies. The only person I feel really bad for, because Spider-Man Brand New Day did so well, like it did such a good job with the movie and with all the characters, is that it's pushing them in this very Spider-Man and other directions that it feels like Destin Daniel Cretton is never going to have the time to do Shang-Chi 2. So you really feel bad for Simu Liu, and it almost feels like they're never going to get around to making Shang-Chi 2 because they'll be so busy making these other even bigger movies. The elephant in the room has been Sadie Sink's character. Sony's been trying to keep such a kibosh on any kind of information about her. I don't want to talk too much about Sadie Sink's character until after the movie is out, but she is a fantastic actress. I thought she did a great job with the script that they gave her, and she'll be an interesting twist on a really big Marvel character. Can't wait to see what Marvel does with her going forward. Like, it's just going to be really exciting because there's so much potential with her. We will talk more about that specifically, the big elephant in the room, in a couple days when the movie comes out, because once you see the movies, you'll probably know instantly what Marvel wants to do with her in the future. John Bernthal was fantastic as his Punisher, even though he did have to be a PG-13 Punisher. Their way around that was to just have Spider-Man web him up anytime he just started cussing. So there are a lot of deleted scenes and outtakes of him cussing up a storm like he normally would, because they let him improv a lot during the movie during those scenes. So if you want a really foul-mouthed Punisher with Spider-Man in a movie, the footage is out there if you can get into Sony's servers, Marvel servers, to actually get it. I'll talk more about their previous relationship and how they helped each other get their roles respectively. Tom Holland helped John Bernthal become Punisher of the MCU initially, and John Bernthal helped Tom Holland become Spider-Man of the MCU when they were first auditioning for their characters. So we'll get into that during my breakdown video.
I'll tell you what I think.
I'll tell you why.
Let me tell you something.
But I can also tell you.
Jacob Batalon and Zendaya come back as their Ned Leeds and MJ. They're foundational to Spider-Man's sense of self in the movie as his best friends, which he desperately wants to be with again. So they actually wound up being a much bigger part of the movie than I thought they were going to be initially. For the most part, I feel like they were on par with what you've seen from them in previous Spider-Man movies, so if you weren't fans of them or their characters before, this movie isn't going to change your mind. All the street-level Spider-Man villains were a lot of fun. I love them giving them more of their time to shine. I would have liked to see more of them. There are many. Some of my few criticisms of the movie are that it does speedrun a lot of them in service of the Sadie Sink subplot and some of the other stuff that it's doing. But I understand why Marvel did that. The movie is the first in a new trilogy, so it does a lot of world rebuilding, setting seeds for story that it can explore later. Like, they're not trying to blow their load with this first movie, and it's not going to be 4 hours long. Although I would have watched a 4-hour Spider-Man movie and would have enjoyed it. Tremel Tillman was a lot of fun. I hope to see him again in the future MCU movies during the X-Men era, because it really does feel like this movie sets up Damage Control to be a big anti-mutant, anti-X-Men organization. There will be some of you really disappointed that they didn't address major plot threads from Spider-Man No Way Home the way you wanted. Like, they don't answer every single hanging plot thread from those previous Spider-Man movies, but Tom Holland has said all the big cliffhangers so far will eventually get addressed. Like, they do have plans to cover some of that story eventually. Just remember, this movie is mostly meant to be a self-contained, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man relatively ground-level movie. And I was really happy to see that Marvel and Sony did this. They resisted the temptation to cross over like every single big Avenger and Avengers Doomsday thing that they possibly could. There are loose connections to some of that stuff in little bits in the background, but it doesn't overwhelm the movie or hijack in any big way. For the larger MCU fans, there are some surprise cameos, some surprises in the movie in general, so you will see some of that. And there was a little bit of Avengers Doomsday stuff during the movie. Of course, they were going to have some connections because it's the next big Marvel movie right after this. And there is a post-credit scene, so do stay after the credits, of course. But there is so much stuff that they pack into this movie, it's going to take me 2 or 3 more rewatches just to catch all the Easter eggs and references. Just to talk about the music and the score, some of it has made it online already. There's some great original themes that Michael Giacchino did, some cool licensed use of music too. Spider-Man soundtracks tend to be pretty solid, but this one was good. I think the movie just goes a long way towards showing what Marvel is capable of doing and what Tom Holland himself is capable of doing. Like, he is the guy. He's an amazing Spider-Man, or will be an amazing Spider-Man going forward in the MCU. And Marvel can do really awesome, really good-looking movies when they want to. It's probably one of the reasons why they're not releasing any other movies in 2027 except for Secret Wars. That was one of the big reveals at the Comic-Con panel recently, is that Kevin Feige said after he did that panel that they weren't releasing any other secret movies in 2027. It was just Secret Wars so that they could just focus on quality over quantity.
This seems an awfully expensive way to announce a film. When do you start filming?
So they can do this good a job with Spider-Man. I'm very hopeful for what Secret Wars can be. We'll see how Doomsday goes later this year. They gave him an extra 6 months to work on Avengers Doomsday. Hopefully they worked out all the kinks. Tom Holland, Sony, and Marvel have said that they're only thinking of these Spider-Man solo movies one at a time, taking it one at a time, but I do think that Tom Holland will return to complete his new trilogy, and Kevin Feige has said that he's got ideas for future MCU movies through like the next 16 years. That is also one of the reasons why you'll be disappointed that they don't answer every little question that they've had from previous Spider-Man movies that are still hanging in the air, just leaving themselves story for future movies. Once you do have a chance to see the movie, everybody post your reactions in the comments below because there's a lot we need to talk about. My post-credit scene video and my full breakdown and Easter egg videos and other specific spoilery videos will post later this week after the movie comes out, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of those. Everybody click here and here for all those videos, and thank you so much for watching. I will